Okay, so welcome back to the behind the scenes of Big Boys Do Cry, and behind the scenes, I'm here with my wife Johanna, and want to continue rolling on with talking about those times where my wife saw me cry and the impact that that had on her and how it made her feel. You know, I speak so much about vulnerability, and I can't think of a way to be more vulnerable than to share with you kind of inside my own home, right? And invite you guys to hear my wife's reflection on me crying, and I feel like hopefully this will be helpful. So I guess, you know, as it relates to my mom and the passing of my mom and my sister, I know that's been something that I've cried about to you many times. Maybe you could share a little bit about the impact that that had on you as it relates to grieving and loss, because I feel like that's a big topic for people.
Yeah, I think it has been a learning experience for me, but I think what is the most important thing here is that we all have wounds from childhood. If we learn to identify as partners the wound that your partner has, you're able to walk him from or by the hand throughout the situation. So in my case, I realized that that wound was abandonment.
Yeah.
And I realized that you were afraid of being loved and being abandoned. When we are children, we don't have the tools to identify how is that going to be reflected later on in life. And all I ask you is to let me love you and show you that I was not going to abandon you. So that's basically what happened there.
Yeah. And so in those times where you saw me cry, speaking about my mom, did that help you to be able to kind of identify, hey, there's this part of Ryan that is struggling with this fear of abandonment? Like, did it help you to understand me at a deeper layer or at a deeper level, or was it something else that made you realize, hey, he's got some guards up here with some parts of him as it relates to abandonment?
He helped me understand that grieving has no ending, and it will actually happen throughout life. There's never enough, or a 1-year grieving or a 2-year grieving or a 30-year grieving is going to be forever, and it's going to take different levels. When you get to understand that that's going to be ongoing, it really helps you understand your partner, and your partner is always going to be grieving at different times in his life. And all they need is your presence, just to be there and to be with that person.
Yeah, beautiful. And so I'm guessing, you know, when you would see me cry in kind of that grieving process, right? I don't know, like, would you look at me and say, was, I don't know, a deeper level of empathy maybe of saying like, wow, there's that part of him that's still grieving, that's feeling abandoned or feeling the missing of his mother's love? Like, did that inspire? Because I felt like you've done it in such a beautiful way to love on that part of me. I'm curious if there was like an aha moment for you, for the women out there listening, or the women that may read, you know, Big Boys Do Cry. Was there a moment where you said, oh, so that's why he's doing what he's doing?
I'm always connecting myself to my motherly side, and me being a mother of 3 children, I always think about that and see you as that, and always my motherly side kicks in, and I realize that you not having your mother at the beginning, how would that have impacted you? Because I was thinking about my children as well, and that will help me identify and know how I could help, and the pain that you would have knowing that I have my children and how my children would be affected if they didn't have me.
That's beautiful. And so let's talk a little bit about, you know, hey, what are some different ways that you feel like as a woman would be a way that the women out there can support the man in their life to feel more comfortable to cry? What do you think would be some advice or strategies or skills? You've kind of got to now have it with me in both ways, me being willing to cry and also you helping to love on me to make me feel, you know, seen, heard, loved, and cared about, and okay to cry. What tips or strategies would you share with some of the women out there?
Something very important is not to weaponize any of your partner's feelings and then turn it around and try to either make fun of that or use it against it in so many ways, because once you do it once, it's going to be there forever and they're not going to be able to open up again to cry. Had I used any of those times where you were crying against you and said, hey, look at you, like you're crying, or what are you crying about? That's not even important. And I'm pretty sure that that would have blocked you right away.
Yeah.
And then you would have said, you know what, I don't feel comfortable crying with my partner anymore because she's making fun of me. She's not really understanding. And we do not really need to understand anything. The person is feeling it, and that's enough for us as partners to know that they're going through some difficult moment.
Yeah, super, super powerful. And, you know, I think a lot of times people look at counselors or look at, I don't know, anybody in the healthcare profession, but we're talking about emotions and, you know, our mental programming, right? And they often think like, wow, this person is a professional. They have everything figured out. You share with them vulnerably a little bit about the behind the scenes of me and some of, you know, you get to witness me and all of my thoughts, feelings, and emotions. If you would speak a little bit about, hey, I've seen Ryan in all of these different emotional states, and what is it that you feel like helps us as a couple to be able to navigate those emotional states?
Yeah, well, I'm smiling because that has been actually a great something that I'm working on myself, because I think that was something that I thought at the beginning, like I'm with a counselor, I'm with a therapist, they know exactly what to do, they know how to fix everything, they know how to talk, they cannot do anything wrong. Yeah. Until I realized that it doesn't really matter what you do, you're human, and that's actually the base of the human experience and the emotions that you're having. And as we go together, I get to learn that you get to make mistakes and I get to make mistakes, and you're not gonna say always the right thing, because sometimes you say things very out of place, very weird, very full of emotion, and I'm learning not to judge those moments, because you're allowed to be human as well and to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Something that I have realized in our relationship is that we have had those hard communications, chats, talks, and that's also a work in progress for me and for you, even though you're a therapist. We're learning to communicate in so many ways, and what this means for you, what this means for me. But yeah, it's very interesting to see that even when you live with the therapist, they're allowed to make mistakes and they're allowed to do all these things that sometimes they don't make sense to us, and sometimes we have expectations. So I think in my case, something that really helped me is drop any expectations of you doing everything right, and to understand that you are human and you're gonna to continue making mistakes, and we're working both of us together on our relationship.
Yeah, I think it's important, guys, to understand that nobody's perfect and nobody's a mind reader. And so really sitting down and having those difficult conversations, facing them head on, we want to have these conversations emotionally regulated, or as emotionally regulated as possible, right? And to talk about those different thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And again, face them head on, lean into it. On the other side of these difficult conversations about emotions is a beautiful next level of the relationship. So very often we may think of, oh gosh, I'm getting into a fight with my partner. This is a sign that the marriage is unhealthy or the relationship is unhealthy. No, it's to be expected as a course of two human beings being together, okay? The question is, what happens on the other side of it? Are we willing to have that difficult conversation? Are we willing to drop the ego and drop the judgment, right? And lean into those emotions and to help each other to feel seen and heard. Not that we're going to get it perfect all of the time, but to put in that effort to helping the person to feel seen and heard, to speak about hey, where were you at? Where was I at? Was I emotionally drained and struggling to communicate with you? Or maybe you feeling a little bit tired or overwhelmed coming into the day or coming into the conversation, and kind of finding that healthy balance. But that is all to say that disagreements are okay. Fights are going to happen. The question is, what do we do afterwards to come back together? Because that's where real strength can be developed. That's where real growth can happen. And so I hope, as you have heard some of the vulnerable exchange from Johanna and I, you've seen that we don't have things perfect. We don't have things all figured out. And that's okay. And it's an ongoing process. And hopefully this vulnerable behind the scenes share lets you guys know that you can release that pressure on yourself and release that pressure on your spouse or on your partner to be perfect, because nobody's going to be perfect.